Last week at Five Flags, Gsrc became the first driver this season to win more than one race. Tonight, Justin Morton and Matthew Thunhorst want to join him in that statistic, and everyone else wants to be the fourth winner in 5 races. Live from the virtual South Boston Speedway, this is round 5 of season 7 of the Bootleg Racing League's Grand National Series, presented by Gargamel's Kitchen. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joey Tebben, and with me in the booth is Devin Henry. Behind the scenes is our director, Joe Peak, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Whether you're so-so at Sobo or a pro bono Sobo virtuoso, the track always offers plenty of challenges. So let's head over to our Gsrc track guide to learn more about it.
Welcome to South Boston, Virginia, and perhaps the most well-known short track to iRacers, South Boston Speedway. Opened in 1957, this 4/10-mile track with limited banking is where many of the old drivers in iRacing got their start, as the track served as an original launch partner with the service and has long been a hotbed of Legend Series drivers learning the ropes on the sim. South Boston is a challenging short track. Your best success usually comes hugging that yellow line, but buyer beware. Pit walls extend into turns 1 and 3, and they are unforgiving. And even more daunting, perhaps, the barriers protecting the pit entrance off turn 4, which are sure to end your race if you spin low on corner exit. Located in the heart of NASCAR country, Sobo, as it's locally known, hosted the Cup Series up until 1971, with the Xfinity Series and the NASCAR trucks racing here into the 2000s. Today, Sobo's a favorite of drivers in the NASCAR modified ranks. It's also seen frequent visits from the former NASCAR East Series. The track also plays host to weekly NASCAR late model action and other touring late model and super late model events as well. On a Saturday night at South Boston, you're likely to see a future NASCAR star. Sobo has served as a proving ground for future NASCAR winners and champions. That's your look at South Boston Speedway. Now it's your turn to try to conquer Sobo. Let's go short track racing.
And that was our Gsrc track guide for South Boston Speedway. Now, as we look at the track description up on our screen here, I would argue that it might be deceptively simple looking, Devin. What are some of the challenges the drivers are going to face tonight?
Deceptively simple. I think that's a very good point there on this short little 4/10-mile oval. It's this just gorgeous little bowl that you love to race, especially in the very typical demo derbies that you'll find in your local hosted sessions. But I think first and foremost, when you think of South Boston, you think of not much room down the straightaways. One person's calamity can cause your race to go all the way down the drain here. It's just that small on the straightaways. And I mean, speaking of deceptive, honestly, when you're in the car, it looks like 4 times smaller than what you actually, or I guess thinner, than what you actually see on track. So first and foremost, you got to worry about the room if someone does have an issue. But like you heard in the Gsrc track guide, just a little bit too much throttle on corner exit, that rear end is going around. There's a lot of little pieces to be very good at Sobo.
Very short oval, the shortest oval we've competed in so far this season. Some compare Monaco to driving around in a family room. This track could be compared to driving around in a kitchen. It's such small space. And speaking of kitchens, Gargamel's Kitchen. Gargamel's Kitchen is a food-grade nitrous oxide provider located in Denver, Colorado, and a proud sponsor of the Bootleg Racing League's Grand National Series. Visit their office at 2045 South Valentia Street or give them a call at 720-707-6178. Now, let's take a look at the championship. The drivers' points, they are pretty close at the top. Only 2 points separate Gsrc, our current leader, and Justin Morton. And 2 points behind Morton is Matthew Thunhorst. And then Austin Belke and Donnie Moore round out the top 5 in the drivers' points. No teams' points in this series, but let's take a look at the race details, Devin.
Of course, when you come to the Bootleg Racing League, expect these long races with 0 tire changes. Round number 5 of an 11-race season, just like every race here, 100 laps, and the rubber that you start your race on is the rubber that you have to end your race on. No tire changes allowed at any point during this race, but you do get the all-important lone single faster pair. If calamity does happen to find you here at South Boston, as it typically does here and there, you do get one mulligan. Still, you don't get any fresh tires with that mulligan. And of course, no qualifying here in the Grand National Series. We stack up the field according to last week's finishing order and invert the top 8. So last week's winner coming from about midfield here tonight at Sobo.
Pole sitter for tonight will be Brian Dean. I don't see Brian on track right now, so I'm not sure if he'll be here tonight. That means that the 7th place finisher from last week, Donnie Moore, will start on pole. And last week's winner, J.R. Shepard, will be demoted down to 7th. And now the practice you're seeing on your screen right now, this is for our Grand National Series. But these drivers, most of these drivers, have already run 5 other races this weekend. There's, of course, the BRL Dirt Street Stock Series that you saw here on Gsrc. Proudfoot won that one. But we had a late model race that James Lowe won. He's in the field tonight. A truck race that Matthew Thunhorst won. He's in the field right now. He's at the top of practice right now, so he's doing pretty well. The Tour Modifieds were won by J.R. Shepard yesterday, and the super late models were won by Jeffrey Harden. All 4 of those drivers in the field tonight. They're all looking to make it 2 wins in 2 days.
And that's one really fun part about the Bootleg Racing League. Is formerly you would really only have the Saturday show. You'd have 3 races where it would all be on the same track. Now you have the series where you have 5 races in 2 days on the same track. And while it's beneficial for this premier series to be able to have the ability to run 5 races and have that experience on a track like South Boston, it's 4 completely different disciplines, if you will. And so the other 4 races that you've ran this weekend, those cars do not run like this Arca Menard Series Chevy Impala. They're just not similar enough to really be able to take everything over from a Tour Modified, from a late model, from one of the old legacy trucks. So you still have that experience of running at this track a few different times, and maybe you're able to shoehorn a couple of things that you learn from the other disciplines into this car. But once you get into this big, heavy stock car, it's completely different kinds of racing. You have the experience, but you still have to find a way to manage yourself in a stock car now for the Premier Series for the Bootleg Racing League.
Not just driving in a circle, we can definitely say. Almost completely different disciplines, no matter what car you're throwing around here. The truck's about twice as fast on a straight line, potentially. Those things being flung around here extremely difficult. And these ARCA cars looking like a handful to throw around here at the moment. Here's Justin Morton in the number 9. He's unfortunately at the bottom of the timesheets right now. But we know he's won a couple races, or won 1 race this season, rather. He's 2nd in the championship, only 2 points behind Shepard. But at the moment, he's 10 spots behind Shepard.
Yeah, Morton, a 5-time winner through the 7 seasons of the Grand National Series, and has had a very sporting look to him so far in season number 7. But I think that the expectations for Justin have risen this year. Not only did he have a living room of children cheering for him last week, but now he also has that experience he have, I think, this year. He really wants this championship. And of course, if you want to win a championship in the Bootleg Racing League, it doesn't matter what series it is, because he's won over 50 across all the different series. You got to beat J.R. Shepard, the 47-time winner in the Grand National Series, coming off of a career low amount of wins in a single season, being last year. You know, he only won 6 of the 11 races. It really wasn't this season because he missed a couple of them. But Justin Morton, he's a guy that we see sometimes in the majors. He'll go and run the Dirt Street Stocks on Friday nights as well. I love seeing Justin Morton come out here and compete. I think over the past few seasons, he's really raised the bar when it comes to his competitiveness and his speed, and he definitely has a shot at taking home a championship this year.
Yeah, Justin Morton running the familiar TDR livery. There's no teams in this series, but he is definitely a member of that team, representing them on this stage, even if he's not necessarily fighting for championship points with them.
Exactly, and even though this series doesn't have like teams, there is of course different path motorsports, and that's with J.R. Shepard and Austin Belkey, and of course you have other drivers who not only have the teams that they race for iRacing specifically, but you also have the friendships that are made in this league. Everyone here in the Bootleg Racing League, for the most part, they all like each other. They all communicate with one another, and when you look at a guy like J.R. Shepard, he helps some of these other drivers learn what to do in situations and learn how to drive these cars better. It's a phenomenal community where everyone communicates with one another and they try to make each other better, and it makes the racing so much more exciting. And within that, you also have certain drivers in this league who like to chat with each other during the race. Matthew Thunhorst and Justin Morton are always on the mics with each other, not necessarily the entire field, but they communicate one-on-one throughout the race. And while they're not like teammates, they're still working together throughout the course of a race. And I think that happens with maybe a couple other drivers and, of course, in preparation for these races throughout the week. So even though there's not that team league feel, you still have these guys working together to up everyone's game and become better racers on the service.
Just under 4 minutes left in practice. No qualifying today, just practice. Field's only separated by 0.3 of a second from first to third, though. About 3.5 tenths or so from Thunhorst to Jewel. And that's a difference of 12 positions.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to the Bootleg Racing League, you take your practice times, and like you said, a deceiving track here at Sobo. Practice is deceiving in the Bootleg Racing League. Take that top 13, throw it out the window, because none of these guys are going for short run speed. Not a single one of them, because there is no qualifying in the Bootleg Racing League. We go off of last week's finishing order and then invert the top 8 from that week. So these guys, since there's no tire changes, it makes no sense to go all out on one lap in practice. It doesn't do anything for you because you're not going to use that in a race because you need to conserve that right front tire. When you come to a place like South Boston, you need to conserve the right rear tire sometimes as well. So you don't go all out here in practice. You try to set up race pace. You get comfortable in this car after running 2 completely different machines earlier at the same track today, and you just get into your rhythm now best you can. So once that green flag flies and you're able to get everyone single filed out, you're already in a better pace or a better rhythm than the drivers are around you. That's the goal here in this practice session. It's not to put the best times on the board. It's to figure out what is your race pace, what is your tire wear, how are you going to attack the first 10 minutes of this 100-lap race.
Riding on board with Steven Spees right now. He's in 10th place, but only 0.2 off the lead, so not much of a gap whatsoever. 2 minutes left in practice. You want to guide us through one of these laps? Tell us what he's doing, what he's probably feeling in the car right now?
Well, on board with Steven Spees, we see him here and there in the Friday night series of the street stocks on dirt, and he kind of runs like it here on the asphalt too. You see just how heavy he has to steer, almost a 90-degree corner there. He has the wheel turn, and these straightaways are just so dang short. You come off of turn 4 here, sometimes you have chaos like that. You get the wheel straight, and already once you get to that start-finish line, you're already preparing for that next corner. You really only get a few yards of comfort trying to go in a straight line before you have to attack that next corner. And of course, when you're coming off of corner exit, you have to be so gentle on the throttle, because if you do get a little bit too heavy on the gas, the right rear wants to spin the car around. And when you come to a race like tonight, the lights are turning on, the sun is going down, the temperature is going to decrease as well. It's 86 degrees outside in the sim, but it's also 90-degree track temperature. While that's not horrendous, it sure as heck is not good, and it is not comfortable. That's going to go down a little bit and decrease, but 90-degree track temp at Sobo with these heavy stock cars, it's not helpful, to say the least.
And we're already seeing quite a few drivers going for a couple slippy slideys in practice, and we know late in the race that is going to be a thing a lot of drivers are going to be doing. But a couple seconds left in practice. You see them taking their final laps. Laps only 15 seconds, so you can still get a good 2 laps in before the session is over. Still Matthew Thunhorst on top of the timesheets over J.R. Shepard by about 1/100th of a second, a little over 100th of a second, and then exactly the same gap is back to Justin Morton. But practice has come to an end. Got a few dying moments until the start of the race. But Devin, we're going to go racing here for 100 laps. You talked about some of the keys being tire saving, being adjusting to maybe some different track temperature. But what do you think is going to be the key to the first couple laps?
Well, you know, I am just the broken record every single week because I have to bring up patience because when you're racing at a short track, obviously, if you don't have any, you're probably going to wreck in these opening laps. But nonetheless, with the temperature that it is, with the pure difficulty of South Boston, if you do not have that patience in these opening laps, not only might you cause yourself a wreck, but you are going to wear out your tires at this track extraordinarily fast. Last thing that you want to do is kill that right front and have to run with that for another 90 laps.
But let's take a look at our grid. Like I said in the pre-race, Donnie Moore on pole position after starting in 7th last week. He'll be alongside finishing 7th last week, rather, alongside James Lowe, and then it's Austin Belke and practice leader Matthew Thunhorst in 4th. Justin Morton, J.R. Shepard, championship leaders on the 3rd row, followed by Bruce Pearson and Joe Segala, rounding out row 4, and then Adam Shane and Todd Liston are 9th and 10th.
Jeffrey Harden, he's won earlier this weekend. He starts off in 11th. Steven Spees will roll off from the 12th position. And the boss man, Lowell Jewell, rounds out your 13-car field here at South Boston.
Do a couple of pace laps around here with how short it is. Give the fans a shot to see all the cars and stars at low speed. The tension rises. It's only a 0.4 of a mile. A little over a quarter mile, a little less than a half mile. But the tension is absolutely bubbling up on the pace lap. I believe the pace car will pull in this time. It'll be Donnie Moore on pole. James Lowe on the outside. Will the inside or the outside win out on the start here? We shall see. The iRacing pace car pulls onto pit road, and it's green. It's South Boston.
How about
Finishing
James
lap
Lowe?
1. Yeah, James Lowe on the high side, ironically, leads lap 1.
Yeah, here at South Boston, you can use that outside lane to defend, but off the green flag, he's got a brand new color this week. It's typically the orange balls out racing machine. He's got it blue here tonight. Able to make that outside work, get around Donnie Moore. Now Matthew Thunhorst looking to follow in his tracks.
Great start from Thunhorst, 4th to 2nd. Donnie Moore maybe just starting to fall down the field a little bit. It is a reverse grid, so this is natural. Everyone's going to meet in the middle here. The faster drivers move forward, the maybe a little bit slower drivers move backwards. James Lowe, fastest lap of the race, in the lead.
Matthew Thunhorst right now sitting in 2nd, and I know that he wants nothing more than to get that number 8 machine out front. Last season when we were here at Sobo, came in 2nd by a mere 8/1000ths of a second in a drag race with J.R. Shepard to the line. Not always and not often do we see J.R. Shepard get passed once he gets into the lead, much like we saw last week when Thunhorst and Morton were hounding him to try to take that P1 position away. Thunhorst wants to get up there first before J.R. Shepard can tag onto that tail tank, the number 80 machine.
J.R. Shepard down to the inside of Donnie Moore. Moore holding tough on the outside, but how long can he do that? Doesn't look like very.
Donnie Moore, the New Hampshire master of plumbing, self-employed plumber over there, and we've seen this outside lane be utilized here earlier on in this race, but 26 not able to hold off J.R. Shepard, who moves into P3. Justin Morton now following along as well.
Justin Morton up to 4th place now. And suddenly James Lowe starts to look in the mirror and maybe get a little bit frightened. He's got pace of his own, but he's got Thunhorst, he's got Shepard, he's got Morton behind him. The top 3 in the championship, and they're all going to be hounding him early on.
And the top 2 separating themselves right now. When we talk about a 100-lap race with no tire changes, the first thing that you have to consider as the leader of this race early on is pace. You do not want to outpace yourself and end up losing that tire. We see it happen so often here in the Grand National Series where you think that you're putting on a great pace. You're putting on a blistering time. You think that you're saving that right front. And at about lap 60, you realize, I don't got nothing left. And you fall like a stone. So you always got to be a little bit more conservative out front if you're James Lowe to save that tire. But you got a sizable gap right now to J.R. Shepard. It would be nice to keep that, even if Matthew Thunhorst is just stalking the rear bumper.
Crossing the line to finish lap number 11, just over a 10th of the way through this race already. Jeffrey Harden in the 44. We know he won yesterday. He looks like he might be falling back a little bit with the 55 of Steven Spies on the bottom. So they look pretty equal through the corner. He's holding tough on the outside.
Spies has a little bit of mild light experience on the dirt side of the real world, and also has been so great to have in this asphalt series. Not always here on a weekly basis, but always gives a lot of effort and a lot of energy whenever he shows up here and kind of drives these cars like some sort of dirt machine, even on these short asphalt ovals. Harden, though, doing a great job fighting back on this outside lane. Might attack the wall a little bit there down the back straightaway. Ruins his entry into turn number 3. That allows Steven Spies to safely get into 10th.
Yeah, a little bit of a scrape on the wall. I don't think he was too hard in to the wall, but he is still rolling in a, well, I would say a straight line, but it's not really a straight line. It's more of a curved line. But he falls down to 11th, and he'll have to fall out of that battle for now.
And it's kind of weird because you do get a straight line here for a little bit at South Boston, but you can see just looking at these cars with the 22 machine, just snags the wall a wee bit there. But there's some tracks that we go to, and it's a literal bowl where you never stop turning. You look at like Lanier, who almost looks like has a longer straightaway than South Boston. You're always turning the steering wheel. Here at South Boston, once you get off of corner exit, you're doing everything that you can to situate your car and settle it down, so you can have a little bit of straight line speed, even as slim as it is, and then you set up for the corner. So even though it's not that typical bowl, and it looks like these guys are almost never getting off some sort of degree of turn in this wheel, you do have a little bit of straight line speed, and you try to maximize that because it's just so dang short.
Here's Todd Liston in 8th place, made up 2 positions already from the start. He's trying to stalk Adam Shane in the number 65. Both of these guys have actually moved up 2 spots from where they started, trying to make their way up the field a little bit more, but it doesn't look like anyone's really close enough to make a move just yet, although as I say that, up front it looks like Matthew Thunhorst is closer to James Lowe than he's ever been.
Yeah, it's really starting to squeeze on up here as Gsrc has entered his name into the hat. And once again, you got to consider pace. The 99 just can't go all out, and Matthew Thunhorst, Gsrc, and Justin Morton, I mean, these are your 4 who will be fighting for a championship. Your defending champion out front. The guy who has the most championships in all of BRL history currently sits in 3rd. These guys are all very intelligent race car drivers in the sim. So right now, Thunhorst knows I don't need to force a move on the 99. I need to outpace him and out-conserve him on my tires. That's got to be the goal right now until that 98 gets to the rear bumper. You know for a fact that you cannot let Gsrc get around you, because once JR passes someone, it is very untypical to see that person who got passed get back around the 98. So when you have the 98 in your rear view mirror, you have to take advantage of that and keep him there almost a quarter of a way through the race right now, and the top 4 really showing off their speed here.
Really streaking away from our pole sitter, Donnie Moore, about 1.5 seconds back from this little train. And they're all separated by about 0.2 each. As they cross the line this time, gap between the leader and second place is 0.18. So we are seeing that critical 0.1 instead of 0.2. And I tell you what, Thunhorst takes a look at the bottom. Not quite close enough to dive it in, though. And that allows Gsrc to get way closer to the back of these 2. Everybody's meeting in the middle right now.
Thunhorst thought about it there. He didn't really have the space to make the move, but at this point now, you got 74 laps to go in this race. It's time to start experimenting, because again, you don't want the 98 getting by you. I don't know how Gsrc does it. He has that real-life experience racing Legends cars at various asphalt tracks, and somehow, some way, he knows how to conserve that tire here in the sim. He is the best in this league at saving that right front tire, and he got pushed to the edge last week at 5 Flags when it came to that. Nonetheless, you know that he might be the #1 tire conservation driver in this race. So Thunhorst now is going to start considering, how do I need to pass James Lowe? I need a car between him and, or himself and Gsrc, I should say, to have that little bit of extra cushion, and then the 8 car starts to dictate the pace. James Lowe is not going to give this up easily, though, because much like Matthew Thunhorst knows, James Lowe also knows you can't have the 98 start passing cars, because you're not going to get back by him. So The 99 will also Shepard. So Thunhorse is going to have to make a move sometime because J.R. Shepard, he flips a switch and the 98 car is gone.
It's looking like Thunhorst is dipping a wheel below the yellow line on the exit of turn 4. Do you think that's actually going to help him out a little bit? Is he getting any more of a run than he would if he wasn't that low?
So there's a couple things to when you put that left front on the apron. First and foremost, at some tracks, it just whips the car around. Here at Sobo, the banking just isn't harsh enough to do that. But what you can do when you put that left front tire onto the apron, sometimes for better or worse, it helps the car turn. Anything that you can do to help your car turn, the more you're saving your right front tire because it's doing a little bit less of the work to slow down and get the car turned. So sometimes that can be intentional to help you save that right front tire, not necessarily a means to make speed, but a means to save your stuff. Other times, though, it can be a way to gain a little bit of speed here. You kind of see how these drivers now are really starting to enter a little bit higher into the corner and cut off the end of turn 2 and the end of turn 4. That way you get a little bit more of a projection, more of a little bit of a thrust coming off the corner into the short straightaway. So there's a few different reasons why he might be doing that. Of course, it could also just be trying to play on the edge of being right on that yellow line. So there's a few different reasons why potentially he could be doing that as the 99. He's been hugging that yellow line all the way around the corner. You got to wonder if that might hurt him on the longer run here.
See the gap still about where it's been for the last dozen or so laps, but Thunhorst is definitely there. He's waiting to pounce for any mistake from James Lowe. If he makes a single one, I think Thunhorst is going to be right on the inside of him. But right now, a little bit of a holding pattern, maybe a little bit of tire conservation. The top 4 have spread out just a little bit, other than the top 2. J.R. Shepard's fallen back a little bit. Justin Morton's dropped back a little bit. But they've still got quite the gap back to Donnie Moore, over 2 seconds. Everybody's running in formation right now. Nobody's really close enough to do anything rash. But in a few laps' time, tires still going off. We know the halfway point. That's kind of a critical moment. The tires should already be going off, but once you get to halfway, the tires really going to be struggling if you haven't been taking care of them.
And in these Arca Menard Series cars, it's just like sometimes with the loading bar, how you get to like maybe not 100%, but it just stops at like 75%. It's like, oh, it clicked. In these Arca Menards machines, your tire wear clicks and you're done. It's just going to start whipping you around, trying to spin you out. It doesn't give a lot of warning sometimes. But like you mentioned, probably the most noticeable thing right now is how far off Justin Morton has dropped off the pace. Now, he's still running about the same lap times as Lowe, Thunhorst, and Shepard, but he has noticeably dropped back a little bit. But we saw this out of the St. Louis, Missouri driver last week as well. He kind of hung back a little bit. He says, okay, we're on a long green flag run here. I'm not passing JR right now. I'm not passing Matt right now. So instead, I'm going to sit back a little bit, save my tires a smidge, and if I need to make that late race charge, I'm going to have maybe something a little bit more. So we kind of saw this last week where a couple drivers said, I'm going to back off a little bit, not too much, but it ended up being more helpful, being able to make that charge. Although I'm sure, as you know, Joey, it's a fine line sometimes between letting them go too far and actually being able to charge back up there once you do have fresher tires.
Battle for 5th place is actually heating up. Donnie Moore and Austin Belke, both of them falling a few positions from their start, but Belke really working the apron almost to try and make his way back to the front. He's almost had the inside of Donnie Moore into a couple corners, but he just isn't quite close enough to make the move. You see Donnie streak ahead by about a car length on the exit of turn 2. But Belke's really going at it to get this spot into the top 5.
And Belke wants every spot that he can get. He is certainly still in this championship punt here in season number 7. Yet to find victory lane in the Grand National Series. He has, though, in a variety of other leagues, or seasons, I should say, series in the Bootleg Racing League. He's still seeing 4th in points. He's still within reach 4 races in to make a little bit of a shot and get up in this point standings and fight for the full 11 races. So he needs every single point that he can get to hang out with Thunhorst, Shepard, and Morton in this points battle. So You know that he wants this pass on Donnie Moore really bad, especially then if we get a caution, he's going to be right up with his championship competitors.
Reach halfway in the race, or we will at the end of this lap. And something that we haven't talked about, but something that will definitely come into consideration in a very near future. James Lowe just exiting turn 4 right now. And we might be able to see as the camera switches around, there are 2 lapped cars named Bruce Pearson and Lowell Jewell just going through turn 3 now. So these guys will definitely reach lap traffic in the very near future.
And something interesting, looking at the lap times, Gsrc has consistently been about half a tenth to a full tenth off the pace of Lowe and Thunhorse. He has been the slowest out of the 3, or I should say top 4 cars. Not even Justin Morton has quite been as slow lap times as Shepard has been. So Gsrc has probably the most finesse when it comes to tire conservation in this league. I think he's doing this for a reason. I can't put a finger on why, though, but Gsrc has proven me wrong in 20,000 different ways. So right now, I'm just excited to see what kind of rabbit he's going to pull out of his hat here, because this is definitely intentional racing by Gsrc right now.
Yeah, those are always the strategies that win the race. You're looking at a guy falling back at like 2 seconds. Ha, I'm faster than you. And then 30 laps later, they're blowing by you. And I think that is usually what Gsrc does, and that's what he's hoping to do today. But right now, he's got Justin Morton all over the back of him. 30 laps from now doesn't matter when you got a guy trying to pass you.
And again, these guys are very smart and conservative racers. So this time by, coming to 45 laps to go, Justin Morton knows that Gsrc is going to have a consistent enough pace to keep up with this top 2 if they do want to hit the loud pedal. He knows that he doesn't need to force a pass on JR right now. There's still a lot of racing left to go. But once you find a lap, you kind of have it set in your head. This is my go lap. When you have someone like Gsrc in front of you, though, and you know that he's going to have speed as well, you need to bump that go lap up a little bit further, because it's one thing to catch someone or to just go. It's another thing to actually make that work out, as Thunhorse took another peek to the inside. It didn't really work out, though. 2 very distinct lines in 3 and 4 last time, though, Joey.
Yeah, James Lowe just seemed to fade a little bit high, entered the corner a little bit too fast, and Thunhorse did have the bottom, but Lowe just got just enough of a run to hold him off and clear him into the corner. But I think he might be getting a little bit nervous, because they can see literally inches ahead are Bruce Pearson and Lowell Jewell, and with how hard it's been to pass so far today, getting by lap traffic, it's going to be a challenge unless Bruce and Lowell get out of the way. Bruce goes high. He's not trying to get out of the way, I don't think, but just by default, they're going to streak by him on the bottom. And then we got Lowell Jewell after that. Thunhorse a little bit slowed just by having to go low on exit. See if Morton and Shepard can dispatch of Pearson just as easily. And now here's Lowell Jewell. James Lowe, he's been playing defense for this whole race, and now he has to play offense against a lap car. But luckily, Lowell gets out of the way. Very kind of him, leaving that bottom line to the leaders. And no harm, no foul.
And it doesn't matter here at a track like South Boston, unless someone stops in the middle of a corner, there is no good place to pass a lapped car. They're either going to slow you down on entry or slow you down on exit. That's just the way it is. And when you're in a league like the Bootleg Racing League, Lowell and Bruce are fighting not just for a finishing position in this race, they're fighting for their starting position next week. So the more lap cars that you come up on that are close to one another, the more difficult it's going to be to pass them, because they're not just going to give you up that spot. They're not just fighting for their finish this week, they're fighting for their start place next week as well. So there's a lot at stake, even if you're not inside the top 5.
Yeah, those guys down in 12th and 13th won't be in the reverse grid positions unless a couple more drivers fall back there. Right now, 8th place is Jeffrey Harden, so if he returns next week, he will be on pole, but there's still 35 laps left to go. So this race is far from over, and everything can change, and, you know, probably will change. 34 more laps to go. The battles we've been watching all race still just as stuck together as ever. Lowe and Thunhorst, Shepard and Morton, and Austin Belke in 5th place is actually dispatched of Donnie Moore, and Adam Shane as well got by Donnie. we didn't see that, but those two drivers both putting Donnie Moore back in 7th place, and one more position lost, and he'll be on pole again next week.
Thunhorse is really starting to push it on exit. You saw last time out of 4, wiggled a little bit, running kind of a different line. But so Joey, do you want me to just completely ruin the race?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, so last week we went 100 laps green, no cautions. Can we do it again? There you go. I just ruined the race for you guys.
And we have a caution. Not yet. Not yet. Still James Lowe running in formation. The next pair of lap cars, that's Spieth and Liston, but they won't reach them for a couple more laps. 30 to go. They'll definitely catch them if we do go green to the end, but not quite yet. Thunhorst is going to have to get by Lowe the hard way. And J.R. Shepard's strategy of holding back, if we thought it was deliberate, it's 2.1 seconds. That seems like quite the gap if this is on purpose.
Yeah, this is seeming like a monumental gap to have to make up. It's over a 2-second detriment to them. Now behind James Lowe. And I don't know, maybe Lowe and Thunhorse are really kind of outpacing themselves and using up too much tire. There's still plenty of racing left to go, but that's what made last week of 5 Flags so interesting. Going 100 laps under green, those final 20-25 laps really saw a couple of drivers come from a little bit further back. It definitely was not 2 seconds back, but they were able to charge their way back up through the field, and Justin Morton almost was able to get the win. So we'll see if something similar happens here, as it looks like we might have a battle for the lead.
Thunhorst on the bottom. He snuck it through about 90% of a car length gap, but he got down to the bottom, pushes Lowe up to the high side, and it might be a little bit too late in the run for the high side to work, because Matthew Thunhorst through turns 3 and 4 clear of James Lowe. And for the first time in this race since about lap 1, we have a new leader, and his name is Matthew Thunhorst.
Heartbreak last season here at South Boston, was looking to get that W, lost it by 8/1000ths of a second to J.R. Shepard. Now he's beginning to pull away a little bit, as it looks like James Lowe is getting a little wiggly there with those rear tires. Thunhorst now just 25 laps away from picking up his 3rd career Grand National Series victory if he can hold on to it.
Todd Liston basically parks the bus on the high side to get out of the way. And James Lowe falling back now. The gap over half a second, or will be potentially 0.4.5. Now it's 0.5. He is falling back, and now he's going to fall into the clutches of J.R. Shepard potentially, now that he doesn't have that little bit of guardian from Matthew Thunhorst. He's all on his own. He's got 2 hungry drivers trying to chase him down, but it's not in the clear for Matthew Thunhorst yet. He still has a lap car to deal with, and you never know. James Lowe could turn something back on in the last 20 laps. It's not likely, but he could.
You know, I don't know what it is about J.R. Shepard, but there is just a switch that he finds, and it turns on, and he just puts on the afterburners. But now Shepard is 3 seconds behind Matthew Thunhorst. The last time by, Thunhorst was 8/100ths of a second, I almost said tenths, 8/100ths of a second faster than anyone else in the entire field. He's really starting to gap it out now.
And it looks like Shepard is struggling, because Morton has been able to look for the bottom on exit of these last couple corners. He hasn't quite been close enough, but if he can just nail one of these exits, I think he's going to have the inside. You can see him looking at the lane. Maybe if it was about 15 laps later, he might send one down the inside. He's not quite close enough yet, but I think one mistake from J.R. Shepard, even though those don't come often, that'll be Justin Morton to the inside.
Yeah, that's like once in every 5 blue moons or something that J.R. Shepard seems to make some sort of mistake. Morton will just have to find a way to get the speed to go around him. You see him using a little bit higher line on entry and tries to get that momentum down the straightaway. He'll have to reload and try again here as he reels back into the rear bumper of that Ford number 98 machine. And these two still light years behind Matthew Thunhorst, who has accumulated a 1-second lead now already over James Lowe. The 8 car is raising the mast, setting sail, and saying sayonara, ladies and gentlemen.
Morton almost put all 4 tires below the apron there, as I think Shepard took a little bit of a bite out of the outside wall. Didn't hurt him too much, but it did definitely adjust the trajectory of that car on the entry of the corner. As definitely feeling the pressure from Justin Morton. He's been feeling the pressure from Morton for about 85 laps. So maybe is it finally getting to him?
I don't know if it's getting to him, but he sure doesn't like having someone so close on the rear bumper. I don't know if J.R. Shepherd just doesn't like this pace he's having to set to keep the 9 behind him, but Justin Morton definitely looks a little bit more comfortable as he takes another peek and just can't find a way to get to that left rear quarter panel of the 98 to keep him on the high side in the corners there. Still going to continue to try to push, but someone who's been moving his way slowly into the picture, Austin Belke, is now only 0.8 behind Justin Morton. He's been closing the gap.
And that's not what Justin Morton wants to see. He just wants to play offense here. He doesn't want to have to block somebody else.
And actually, Austin Belke has consistently been running the second best lap times on the track, only behind Matthew Thunhorst. So Belke's lap times have still been a staggering pace. He continues to close the gap down. Now only 3/4 of a second. There's a chance here that Belke can pick up another position, and Adam Shane not too far behind him as well, as Justin Morton tried a different lane there, wanted to see if he can make the outside work. I think he's just going to go all out here, try that outside groove, but I just don't think it has enough in it to really close that gap.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's working for Morton. If anything, the line he was trying before was getting him closer, but it just wasn't getting him to make the move. And I tell you what, if he tried it on that time, JR went pretty high there. He might have been able to get the inside, but right now it just is not working for Justin Morton. Only 10 laps to go. James Lowe kind of in a league of his own. Matthew Thunhorst kind of in a league of his own. So this battle will most likely be for 3rd and 4th and 5th with Austin Belke. Morton did have a nose on the bottom. A big wheel from Shepherd through 1 and 2, but again, Morton has to check up and he can't make it through.
And just like that, the Jeff Gordon throwback of Austin Belke closes up on the rear bumper of Justin Morton, and these three are going to have each other quite a bit of dicing up as we have only 7 laps to go this time by. The final spot on the podium up for grabs.
8 laps to go. Belke getting close to the left rear quarter panel of Justin Morton's car, but not close enough yet. They've got 1 car in front of them. That's a lapped car of Steven Spies. That's not for position, but to the inside. Belke's to the inside of Morton, but again, not close enough. The run on the outside, good enough for Morton to hold 4th, but not good enough for him to make a move to 3rd.
Man, it's funny. Justin Morton was the first one to move up to that high line, and then J.R. Shepherd follows him. Austin Belke starts to get to the outside as well. Justin Morton pioneered the outside. Now everyone's stealing it away from him. 5 laps to go. And boy, we have a heaping battle for this final spot on the podium.
Little bit of a wiggle in a straight line from Shepherd. Those tires... there goes Belke. Absolutely sends it to the inside. A little bit of a shove to get Morton out of the way. He's going to have the bottom now. Morton still trying to run the outside. The outside still working for Justin. Maybe a little bit of an advantage out there with how old these tires are. Belke might have the track position, but he doesn't have the speed on exit. Morton holds 4th again.
And the issue there is that Belke is just so loose on corner exit, just trying to keep the car down and out of the door, the number 9 machine. Morton now will take a shot here. J.R. Shepherd, door-to-door coming off of turn number 4. He's got a chance here.
Only 2 to go. This is the time where you get the bumpers out, where you get the doors out, maybe shove him out of the way. He's got the inside cleanly here. But the bottom... it's working, but Shepherd is going to have a run on the outside. Final lap. Matthew Thunhorst is going to win easily. Around turns 1 and 2. For the final time, it was a no-go for James Lowe, but Matthew Thunhorst wins Sobo.
Coming off of 4, J.R. Shepherd put everything that he could into it, gets loose, and Justin Morton will pick up the final spot on the podium.
Check out a replay of that. That was... JR giving it everything he had, like you said.
Laid it all out on the line. Here's this entire final lap. J.R. Shepherd here on the outside, and you'll see him coming off of 4. Let's listen in here and listen to his acceleration coming off of 4.
I believe if you look in the dictionary, that's right next to pedal to the metal.
Hey, you saw that 9 car had quite the nose in front of the 98. He knew that he needed all the gas that he could. On board here with Austin Belke. He's going to steal away fourth here and some extra valuable points. 98 gets wicked sideways there, and Belke able to steal away a top 4 out of this.
Great race for third at the end. But right now, we're going to go to a quick break, and when we come back in a few minutes, we'll see the results, and we'll talk to your top 3 finishers. So come back in a couple minutes. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the virtual South Boston Speedway. The smells of burnt rubber and gasoline wafting through the vortex of the air as a 100-lap race has come to an end, completely green for the second race in a row, and it was Matthew Thunhorst that came out on top. James Lowe led so many laps, but it was only enough for second place. Then Justin Morton rounds out the podium. Austin Belke up to fourth at the last second, followed by J.R. Shepard, who fell back. Adam Shane in sixth was sneaky close to that battle at the end. Donnie Moore and Jeffrey Harden will be your front row next week in 7th and 8th. And the first cars a lap down, Joe Segala and Steven Spees.
Todd Liston brings it home in 11th, Lowell Jewell in 12th, and your final position tonight is Bruce Pearson here, your 13-car field at South Boston.
Well, we've got our second place finisher here with us, James Lowe. I guarantee you led the most laps tonight, but unfortunately at the end, just a little bit of tire fall off, you would say? That fell back about 2.5 seconds?
I don't know. I think I was a little bit better in 1 and 2, but he was killing me in 3 and 4. I couldn't figure it out all night in any of the races. So I don't know. I guess I need to do a little bit more homework for, that corner at least. And but he was driving lights out there, so I don't think I really had anything for him anyway. I think he was playing with me there for a while.
Well, you had him behind you for about 80 laps, I would say, and we were talking about how the pressure is probably pretty intense. How did it feel inside the cockpit having a race winner just absolutely glued to the back of you for that long?
Well, in those situations, you just try not to look in the rear view at all, and I wasn't paying no attention to it. I was just trying to hit my line, trying to avoid the tunnel vision that usually comes with these little small itty-bitty tracks, and hit my line. I missed it a few times, but that didn't have any real effect on the race. It was just he got through 3 and 4 way better than I did, and that was the story.
Yeah, we definitely didn't see you making too many mistakes today, and it all paid off because a second place finish was the end result. You have anyone you want to thank before we get you out of here?
Yeah, I think my team, Balls Out Racing, and Kyle Smalley especially. The paint looked awesome tonight. Brand new paint that he made for me. And I'd like to thank Gargamel's Kitchen for coming on board and helping us out, and Lowell for putting on us on, and you guys for doing a great job.
Yep, and thank you for putting on a show tonight. That was your second place finisher, James Lowe. And next up, it's our winner. It's Matthew Thunhorst. Devin, talk to him.
Man, from the heartbreak last season by 8 1/1000ths of a second to domination here tonight. Man, how satisfying is this victory able to get around James Lowe? And you turned on the cruise control there.
Oh, sorry, wrong button. Yeah. I was just, I tried to learn my lesson from last week and was trying to push James while not tearing my own stuff up. And he was really difficult to pass. He made a couple of mistakes, and he was able to close the door quick enough that I couldn't get the run without absolutely shredding my rears. So, I mean, um, yeah, I was pretty nervous there about halfway, about lap 50. I saw I hadn't gotten around James yet, and was worried I was tearing my stuff up, and I saw JR and Justin sneaking back there. So I had premonitions it was going to be Southern Boston all over again from last season. So yeah, it's definitely a good feeling to kind of be able to do what I did tonight.
And speaking of lessons learned, this is back-to-back 100-lap green flag races. I think it's the first time that's ever happened in the Grand National Series. So now, I don't want to say it's an expectation, but you kind of got to prepare if you're on a long green flag run. It might go all the way green. So what are some of the things that you have to learn and adjust to going, hey, I got to check in case this goes green all the way, I might need to race a little differently?
Well, I think for me, it really doesn't change my strategy because I've always kind of been the guy that doesn't really back down, tries to go and get what I need when I feel I need it. So, um, maybe it takes kind of playing to the cautions and taking it early in the first half of the race out, but that was never kind of the way I raced anyway. So, I mean, it doesn't change too much what I do. It's just I can't be too aggressive too early because then, well, you've got, maybe 80 or 90 laps is when if these things give up, they're really going to give up. So it's just you can't abuse them too quick because it's going to show right there at the end. And so the guys that have been able to keep up and save are just going to blow your doors off.
Second win of the season, third career victory in the Grand National Series. You sit third in the points, only 4 points behind J.R. Shepherd. Who do you got to thank for bringing home win number 2 this season?
Just Gargamel's Kitchen for sponsoring the league and, allowing us to have this great show put on for y'all. Lowell, and everybody else involved in the league. It's really cool to see the guys go back to back 2 weeks in a row, full green flag races. So, I mean, that's pretty special. So, and then, of course, always Austin and Justin hanging out with me. So, had a lot of fun, and I'll be eager to go back and because I heard they were battling pretty hard back there. So I'll be pretty eager to go back and watch the broadcast and see what they were doing. So I'm just really proud of the guys and everybody involved in the league tonight. They put on a good show, and I'm glad you all were here to bring it to us. So thank you all on your end, too.
Hey, it was great to watch. And, of course, you put on a clinic. Matthew Thunhorst, your victor here at South Boston. Congrats, Matthew.
Thanks, Devin.
All right, now we'll catch up with your third-place finisher. Joey is caught up with Justin.
Yep, Justin Morton, P3 from 5th on the grid. You guys certainly gave us the most excitement in those last couple laps. You and Belkey and Shepard and Shane. How was that inside the cockpit, a 4-car battle?
Yeah, I was really hoping it wouldn't become a 4-car battle. I was hoping it would say that 2-car battle with me and JR. That was intense. I don't think I took a single breath in those last 10 laps. I was just so focused on trying to finally get around JR, and that might be one of the first times, or one of the first few times at least, that I've actually been able to get around JR on pace.
Yeah, we saw you trying out different lines. We saw you going all the way to the bottom. We saw you trying to make the top work. Eventually, you did get by, but what was your mindset in the cockpit trying to get by him?
Yeah, I knew I had to try something. I think me starting to move to the outside, I noticed JR started to slide up more also because that outside line was pretty quick. You saw whenever Austin got below me, I was able to get back by him. It was fast. There was at one point, there was a small netcode contact with me and JR. Didn't really affect either of us. So I knew it was there. I just got to him at the last second. Getting him to slide up the track, open that bottom, and that worked right at the end.
And next week, we reach the halfway point of the championship. We're going to Southern National. Not the most dissimilar from this track, but also not the most similar. How do you feel about Southern National?
Yeah, I really like Southern National. I've had some pretty good results there in the past. It's one of the tracks I really like, so I'm looking forward to it.
And I believe, if my calculations are correct, it's going to be you and Matthew Thunhorst tied for the championship lead, I believe, because you were separated by 2 points and it flipped over. So I think that'll be exciting for you. And you have anyone you want to thank before we get you out of here?
I'd like to thank my team, Total Downforce Racing, great group of guys. Pixel Dust for the amazing paint, Gargamel's for jumping on, Gargamel's Kitchen, for jumping on, sponsoring us, Lowell for running this great league, and you guys for doing the amazing broadcast.
It is certainly not a chore to put on these broadcasts when we're putting on good shows like tonight, especially like you guys did for that third position. That was your third place finisher, Justin Morton. That was our top 3 finishers after a fairly exciting race and a completely green race 2 times in a row, Devin. And you think that's never happened before?
I don't think so. I've been here with the Grand National Series for many seasons. I think I did some races back in season 1, the inaugural season for this premier series. So, I mean, you get like a full green flag race maybe once every other or once every season, but back-to-back 100-lap green flag races. And first of all, this is a short track series with no tire changes. This is what you love about racing. Short tracks with big tire wear and conservation and adaptability. You love to see that first and foremost. But when you're able to go 100 laps of green flag racing, it brings out all the strategy, it brings out all the desperation in those closing laps. I absolutely love to see the past 2 weeks, the kind of racing that we've had, not just because it's clean, but because it is just exciting to watch 100 laps of green flag racing at this high of a level.
And the best part is, we get to do it again next week, and the next week, and the next week. There's still 5 more rounds left in the season after next week. And all of them will be brought to you by Gargamel's Kitchen, food-grade nitrous oxide provider located in Denver, Colorado, and a proud sponsor of the Bootleg Racing League's Grand National Series. You can visit their office at 2045 South Valentia Street, or give them a call at 720-707-6178. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts listed here on your screen. Additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. You can see the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the entire team who helped to put on this broadcast today, and thanks to all of you viewers for tuning in. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Or you can check out our social media through the outlets listed at the bottom of the screen. And if you'd like to support the channel, go check out our merchandise store at simracingmerch.com/GSRC. The link is in the description below, and while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. Next race, like I said, for the BRL Grand National Series is at Southern National, Saturday, August 7th at 8:50 p.m. And we also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Well, for Devin Henry, Joe Peak, and Dougie Beard, I'm Joey Tevin. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.